Hello and welcome to The Naked Truth About podcast. I am Danielle Hellebrand, executive coach, keynote speaker and columnist at Better Brains at Work.
And I'm Beverley Wilson-Wunsch, professor at the Department of Tourism, Hospitality and Events Management at IU International University in Germany.
And we often talk about the need for real and honest conversations about work and life in a community whose members invite, encourage and inspire each other because people need people. And today we have the opportunity to talk to another wonderful guest. We have Stephanie van Oorschot with us today.
Hello, Stephanie, ladies. Welcome, the tantalizing, beautiful, lovely lady Stephanie. It's so great to have you here. What a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
And Stephanie, you studied international hospitality management at Stenden and did your Executive MBA at Nyenrode Business University. And currently you are the Industry Relations Officer at the Hotel Management School NHL in Stenden. And a field of study and project you and Beverley know each other from is the EMCup. I think where the main goal is to attract and inspire future leader talent to choose a career in the hospitality and tourism industry. And, we have so much things we would love to talk to you about. So I would say, let's just jump in.
That's right. Let's jump in, Stephanie. Lovely. Can you talk to us a little bit about who you are? Let's face it, I know you from the EMCup. We've seen each other, we've laughed, we've talked, we've eaten, and we have shared many wonderful hours together. But for the rest of our listeners, who are you, Stephanie?
I think we even danced together, Beverley.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
My name is Stephanie. I'm 34. I am a Dutchie. I kind of bounced around the country a lot. So born in Amsterdam, brought up in the south, in Limburg, studied in Leeuwarden all the way in the north. And I now settled down in Amersfoort, which is pretty much exactly in the middle of the country. I think, Danielle, you already explained a bit about my studies and my background, as well as my current job at the Hotel Management School in Leeuwarden. And besides that, I'm quite busy. I love to travel, I love to explore, and I'm also active in lots of networks for hospitality professionals, one of which is the European Mise-en-Place Cup, the EMCup, but also an alumni network called HotelloTop. So that's what's keeping me busy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a lot. At such a young age. 34, you said?
Yes.
Oh,
she's
Beverley,
a baby.
I even can't remember. A long time ago.
She's a baby. She's still a baby.
What a beautiful young woman.
That's right.
But Stephanie, we all have a background in hospitality. And what does a hospitality mindset, or one may call it a service mindset, what does that mean to you?
I prefer hospitality mindset over service mindset.
Why?
To me, hospitality goes beyond just service. And what I really like about that as well, in our hotel management school, we call this, we work with the concept hostmanship, which is the art, you probably know it, right? The art of making others feel welcome. And I think that's a really beautiful way of explaining that mindset. And maybe for me, in addition to that, I think a very important part of this is also, it has to do with respect, right? Respecting other people's opinions or point of view, and sort of, I guess, being judgement-free in that is for me a big part.
And I love the art of making people feel welcome. It's an
because
art. It is an art. It is an art. Oh, I love that. The art of making people feel welcome.
It is indeed true. And so to get to this stage then, Stephanie, where you are, perhaps you can give us a little bit of a history of how you got to this stage, where you are today.
Oh gosh, where do you want me to begin? How far back?
Well, you're only 34, so it cannot be that much, is it?
No.
Should be a very short story, I thought.
Oh, well, let me think. Where will I start this? Maybe when I chose for hospitality, right? So I actually wanted to go to law school for a while. I wanted to go to university, and I thought law is a very interesting subject, but it was way too theoretical for me. I'm much more of a practical and people person than law school. So I thought, okay, maybe I should try for hotel management school. But half my family studied hotel management school in Maastricht, actually. So I thought, at first I thought, I don't want to study hotel management because everyone else has already studied hotel management. But eventually I did figure out that that was the best fit for me. And then I thought, I'm not going to Maastricht because that's where they all went. So that's why I went to the other side of the country and moved to Leeuwarden to study there. So I guess fast forward student life, which was great fun. So we have our full fourth year is an internship, so 10 months. And someone gave me a tip and said, I heard about this great internship in Maastricht. I really think it suits you. It's a PA to CEO for a big hospitality employment company. And I thought, what, why not? I'd never heard of this company. I'd never heard of this guy, but I thought, this sounds interesting. I can go back to the south, so let's do it. And before I knew it, so this was 2010, I think. And then you blink twice and 10 years have passed. And I spent 10 years at this group of companies. So I started as a PA and eventually became a director of one of the companies in the group. We set up and managed networks for hospitality professionals, such as HotelloTop, which I already told you about, and also the EMCup. So I was there for 10 years. In the last 2, I combined my work with my Executive MBA. And then COVID. I'm sure this is a returning topic on your podcast too. So COVID happened, and for me that meant all the perspective that I thought I had or that we had envisioned was gone because the companies grinded to a halt. And a couple of bankruptcies happened, and I thought, what, this is probably my sign that it's time to broaden my horizons. So I left, took a few months off, which was great. And then about 2 years ago now, I joined the hotel management school in Leeuwarden. So uprooted my life, moved from Maastricht to the middle of the country. A really big shift from working in an entrepreneurial environment to working in education. So it's been very interesting the past couple of years. Kind of a whirlwind, but it's been lots of fun. Yeah, I've always had the chance to travel, which I really love. So that's made it very interesting over the past couple of years.
Yeah, and you mentioned the switch from entrepreneurship to education now. Can you tell a little bit more about what that switch means? For now, is this the place, what you're doing now, that you really wanted to do? Being in education? That it crossed your mind ever?
Actually, no, not mine. The funny thing is, I remember I was taking a few months off, and my dad said to me, he said, "Can't you go work for the hotel school?" And I was like, "What do you mean? You're crazy. Why would I go work in education? That doesn't suit me at all." And he was like, "I really think you should do that." And a couple months later, this opportunity came along. But the nice thing about my role is that my role is all about building bridges between education and the hospitality industry. And that's what for me makes it really fun. So I don't teach. I'm not really that involved in the actual educating that's happening, but it's really about showing how we can work together much more effectively, but also more intensively as industry and school. So that makes it fun. Having said that, it is a big switch because you come from an entrepreneurial environment where everything is fast-paced and where you have like big goals and you sort of learning by doing and those things. And then in education, things are much more considered and a bit slower paced. So it took some getting used to. I'm not a very patient person.
That's right. But interestingly, I think your father must be a very wise man. I am particularly happy that he actually advised you to go into education. because I think you're such a great example for young women who are wanting to pursue a career in this great industry in which we work.
I think he will be very happy to hear this later.
I think he should listen to the podcast so he can hear us, say kudos to him and thanks to him indeed. But a question that I actually wanted to pose is, do you feel that female in the hospitality industry is treated different?
I really had to think about this. Because you were joking about this in the beginning, right? She's only 34. I think for a very long time, I was actually the only woman in a leadership team in my previous role. And not only that, I was also the youngest, right? So I became the director at probably, I think, 25 or 26. So I was very much used to that position. But it did take me a little while to sort of find... How do you say that? Find my groove.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we traveled to this. I won't mention any names, but we traveled to an event from a pretty esteemed industry association having an annual meeting, and this is a real old boys network, right? And I traveled there together with my CEO at the time, and I remember meeting people, and they would shake my hand, but they would barely look me in the face, right? They'd be like, "Oh, he must have brought an assistant or something like that." I really remember that very vividly. Indeed, yes. But I always thought of it as an opportunity to surprise people.
Yeah.
So to me personally, it's never really been a big problem. I always thought, okay, well, that's fine. If that's what you think, well, let's see what you think in 30 minutes, or let's see, how I might be able to change your perspective. So I've never felt like, I've never felt less or anything like that.
Right.
Maybe a bit of an underdog,
right?
But never less.
Right.
But in this time and age, I mean, I feel that more than 20 years older than you. And after I finished hotel school in Maastricht, I worked there also for a few years at the internship department. And then I had a event company with 2 other men.
Yeah.
And I know we had some conversations about within our network with people. And so often people said to one of my co-founders, "Oh, by the way, I give this and that to your secretary, Mr. Hanselman." And that was I.
Yeah.
And I never said something about that. I just then, okay, let them think that I'm the secretary.
Yes.
But at the same time, I thank God I never felt less. So I did not sleep bad over that. I did not feel bad. I could laugh about it. And I thought, how on earth, why do people think I'm just the secretary? Although a secretary job is a very important job. And now, 20 years later,
yeah,
still. Yeah.
Perhaps it's something that will continue, do you think?
I think there's a lot of probably unconscious bias there as well from people. So it's hard to change, I think. But it's also, it's only a problem if we make it a problem, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know.
What I also think is, Beverley, our generation was one of the first generations who really came into management positions. I don't know what about your mother and your grandmothers. Well, in our family, I was the first woman. I'm 55 now. The first woman who had, at a very young age, a management position. And I didn't have that much role models. But I think nowadays that more and more women come into management positions. People, how much knowledge, skills we didn't use all those years, where the moment that women were not in leadership position, and now women get more and more and more into leadership positions. We get to a quite different mindset, more focus on soft skills. And I also think that now men who were thought to be the alpha males, who were also always very happy with that all the time, who also can show more and more of their interpersonal skills, their soft skills, don't you think?
Definitely. I think you're totally right. If I look around me, the funny thing actually, now that I work in education, I work in an executive team which is probably 70% women. My own team is the majority is women, which is very different from what I was used to. And you do see that change. And I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you also wanted to talk about salary, right? In education, and that's a great thing I think about education, I don't think that's the case, that there is inequality there because it's so structured and organized.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I can imagine that in the business world, that might be very different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It is. And I remember when I left my event company and went into the corporate world, I had a male colleague who earned almost 1,000 euros a month more than I did. I thought, this is incredible. I thought I was better. I thought, how on earth is this possible? Horrible. But he earned a lot more.
Yes,
so yeah, in your field, Beverley and Stephanie, maybe it's not the case, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
We'll stay in education in that case.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And try to encourage some more women to join the fold in the.
Mm-hmm.
But I think yes, we can agree that the disparity is getting a little bit less. However, I do feel that women still face a few challenges in the professions.
Mm-hmm.
I wondered whether or not you would expand on something like that. Do you see any major challenges that a female professional might be having at the moment?
I can share a personal challenge, maybe. I don't know if this applies to more people, but for me, what's been quite challenging, well, you both know me, right? I'm opinionated, I'm quite strong-willed, most of the time quite confident about my abilities, but there's always kind of a struggle, but also not wanting to come across like too strong or too rigid or something like that, right? Which is silly, but it is true. And I remember when I first came into a leadership role that this was the feedback I would get from my team. Like, you're too strong, or you have such an influence on the atmosphere, like a sfeer bepalend, we'll say in Dutch, right? And I really had to find my own style in that. And, I think I now have it sort of figured out, which means, you kind of using my charm or my femininity and always being kind, but still being like persistent, or still not letting anyone walk over you, or actually still getting your way, still getting your point across without having to necessarily be very, very rigid or strong in that. And that, for me, has been a personal challenge. Yeah.
Cool that at your age you already figured a few things out, how to present yourself, what your role is. I'm still trying to figure out a lot of things in my life, so I think that will never stop.
Never.
It's an ongoing thing. But Stephanie, are there things you underestimated in your career? For me, for example, when I was a student having my career, and I dreamt about a lot of things. For me, what I underestimated was, and that has to do with my personality, always feeling such a deep, huge, big responsibility for the people I work with, for the work I do. I'm someone who is not quite able of being to let go or thoughts and worries. Everything is always at the back of my mind. And the huge challenges I faced in all the jobs I did, what I underestimated how difficult it is for me personal, being Danielle, to relax and let go of two things, go with the flow. Always this huge weight on my shoulder. So that's one of the things I really underestimated. Other things you can tell us that you think, never thought of that. Heavier than I thought.
I actually really, really understand what you're sharing, because for me that's very similar. Like I'm very driven and I pride myself in that, but it's also a burden, right? Because it's also learning to build on the people around you. Because I've always been used to, I'll do it myself because then I know it'll be done the right way, right? Because I know best, obviously. So that has been very challenging, or at least a very interesting process to figure out how to navigate that. And I remember around the same time that I first got that director role, I was this close. Like I was on the edge of a burnout because of the pressure I put on myself. So I really, what you're saying really resonates with me.
Do you have a role model, Stephanie? And if so, who is?
I don't actually. I never actually had. I don't think so.
Okay.
For me, it's I would say it'll probably be a woman, obviously, someone who's a bit like badass, or someone
You
who's
don't sound badass to me, though.
No,
No,
but my role model would be. But people who are like unapologetically themselves. I think
Okay.
that's so cool.
Yeah.
And I would not have the courage for that, I think.
Yeah. Maybe you should step up to that role, and then other young women will begin to look up to you. I'm sure that there are lots and lots of young professionals around. I look up to you.
Aw.
I'm serious. I
Yes.
think I love you. I love you. I love your elegance. I love you're always so professional in the way you step out. I feel that you have a certain aura that I completely admire. So I think that there are lots and lots of young women who are out there saying, I would like to be like this lady.
That is so sweet of you to say. Thank
I
you.
love you for that.
But I also think, Beverley, I think that's a very good question, because I think it's important, not the role model I copy the way that other person is, but ages ago when I started my career and there wasn't the internet, I think now in retrospective I missed other role models, and role models in a sense, if I listen to other people, whether it's male or female, listen and absorbing how they deal with things, how they handle things, how they step up for themselves, how they deal with boundaries, how they deal with being a mother, having a family and a career.
Right.
In the pre-internet time, I only saw people around me, quote unquote, who had all figured it out, quote unquote, who could handle everything. And I was just internally sometimes a mess. I was tired. I thought sometimes, how on earth do all that other people cope with things? And now, when I go on the internet and I listen to podcasts or I look at interviews with people I find very interesting, I think, oh, cool, that's how they do it. Oh, they also have their bad times. And even now, Stephanie, at 55, I sometimes say to myself, Danielle, stop comparing that shiny outside of other women with your messy inside. They also have a messy inside, and none of us has figured it out. And then by the things I do, not always, but sometimes I think I should be aware that there are also women or people out there who are looking at me, and I try to be that role model. I try to be conscious of my role. Don't you, Beverley? With your students, that they look and think, oh, the way Professor Wilson handles this, whoa, that's something I want to learn from. Are you aware of that? Are you a little bit aware of that role, Beverley?
Sometimes I just don't know sometimes, to be honest with you. I think it's more my daughter that I'm always worried about, because she always tells me, I don't know what your students think, how they listen to you. But that's a daughter thing, I think. But I really do feel that I do have a responsibility to make sure that the things I'm doing is something that people would want to admire and would want to copy down the road and live their lives along that line at least. And if I can help somebody along the way, I always feel that I would have
Mm.
accomplished my task as a
Yeah.
professor.
And also, Stephanie, that's why Beverly and I wanted to do this podcast, The Naked Truth, about to not only talk about the shiny things on the internet, but also have the real and honest conversations. I talked in previous podcasts about my fears. There are so many times I went to work. I was afraid. I was afraid not being enough, doing enough, afraid of other people. I did not always picked my battles wisely. I had phases that I found it so hard to combine my life as a mom with a heavy career, and being able to also talk about being anxious, being not knowing what to do. I think that's something that I see myself in as a bit of a role model to show people that you can overcome things the moment you start talking about things with other wise people, not just with everyone, to pick wisely who earned the right to see my vulnerability. So that's at the moment in this phase of my life, I would love to be a role model to let people know it's okay to talk to other people. It's okay to show that you don't know. Are there in your career, do you sometimes talk to people, Stephanie, at the moments, the situations that you think, oh, I'm overwhelmed. How on earth am I going to solve this situation or this problem?
Oh, yes. Oh, I do. I do now. I didn't used to. In the past, I didn't. I would always be trying to solve and figure everything out myself. You were talking about being a mother and balancing everything. And I'm not a mom, but my friends are. And I see that with them. And that always. And then I think it's really, I have it so much easier, right? Because that's all I have to focus on is basically then my work, which brings a whole other challenge of, also focusing on yourself, which I'm not always the best at. But yes, nowadays I do try to do that. And I just told you, right, about, being really close to being burned out and those things. And back then, what really helped me was actually talking to a coach and also learning to put things into perspective because you can make things really big in your head, right?
Yeah,
and I still do. And now working in this different field as well, my pace is much higher than that of my environment. So I sometimes can get really frustrated by that because I'm like, am I the only one who thinks this is important or who thinks that this has priority? Which is, of course, not the case. But you can't decide how other people think if you don't ask.
Exactly. One has to ask other people also to clear your mind and to put things into perspective. Not having it just a roller coaster in your own mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, when you can, in most cases, actually sharing that you're, I don't know, struggling with something or that you're not sure of how to approach or deal with something, that already makes the biggest difference. And I remember very often thinking, I can't tell them this, right? Because then I'll be weak or then I'll be, I don't know, I won't be competent or something like that, which is, I think there's a lot of strength in being vulnerable.
That's right. That's right. But it's okay to be vulnerable, I think.
It is.
We're old enough now.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed.
I really wanted to get back, though, Stephanie, to my first thought about how I admire you because you're always so elegant. I wondered if you had anything to say to young women out there, particularly in hospitality, about the way they dress.
Oh, gosh.
I know it's a tough question and it's arguably one of those, debatable subjects. But should women in hospitality carry themselves a certain way, or is it okay to basically do what you want?
Well, I really don't think I'm in a position to give any wardrobe advice. But I will say this: whatever your personal style is,
Yes.
the devil is in the detail, right? So make sure you have, I don't know, polished shoes or manicured nails or no loose seams or those things. I think that makes a massive difference. Whether your style is super businesslike or more casual, it's those things that can really change the way you come across, I think.
Right, because we talk a lot about hostmanship, we talk about hospitality. I think hospitality schools often encourage students to sort of dress a certain way. But I think that there's a little bit of a pushback more and more, especially with the younger generation not wanting to follow those rules. I don't know, Danielle, what you would actually also say about that. But
Back in the days, I feel like grandma's talking, but back in the days at our school, it was so strict, dress
right,
codes. And I think now in retrospective, I am glad that they drilled about a lot of things. So I now know how to behave, how to dress,
right.
what to pay attention to. I don't have to question, is this appropriate, is it not? And I'm trying to do the same thing now with my son. At a certain point, he can do whatever he wants, but he has to know what is appropriate and what not. And I'm so with you, Stephanie. It's all about the details. That's what hospitality, the art of hospitality is about. And so should we, I think, behave and dress. But you know what? What I was thinking, Beverly, when you asked that questions, during COVID, I felt such a almost relief not having to dress up. I could wear comfy clothes. And I must say, I loved it because next to the career, being a mom, being a good partner, being a good friend, being a good daughter to my parents, etc., there is also that shitty pressure on looking good. I think, oh, I have to go to the gym. Oh, I have to lose some weight. Summer is coming, and every year summer is coming 6, 7, 8 kilos too early. So not having that pressure, I felt it as a relief during COVID. Can you relate, or am I the only one who was thinking, comfy
We can
clothes,
relate.
not doing the
Totally.
hair, just of course, looking after myself, but not that. And there is a kind of atrophy left that at the end of COVID, some newspaper did an article about me, and then a photographer came, and I didn't wear high-heeled shoes for over 2 years. And down at my stairs, there is a very big mirror. And I see myself, Stephanie, after 2 years, for the first time, coming down that stairs. And I thought, I look like a guy who wears high heels for the first time in his life. I thought, what happened to me? What happened to me? But this pressure, that's another thing that I see and feel, this pressure on younger people. I know at my days there was, we learned to look at how we dressed, how we behaved. But I didn't feel, Beverly, that in our days there was so much pressure on the outside, being slim and all the girls look alike. And, that's a shitty pressure. Or am I the only one who is feeling that weight on her shoulders?
You're not at all, Danielle. I think we all do feel that little bit of pressure. To be honest with you, it's not so much about the actual dress. It's really about the attitude. It's about the way you carry yourself. And I think, as you said, Stephanie, the important thing is for people to realize that there is actually value in being disciplined, in being able to follow a certain path. And whichever place you go and wherever you go, attitude matters
It does.
because our world needs, that's what we're talking about, hospitality. Our world needs a place where we can all respect each other and we can live as human beings in a place where we all get along. And it starts with also too about the way you carry yourself, I think.
Oh, definitely. I think we spoke about it in the beginning. If the goal of hospitality is to treat others like with respect and without judgment and to make them feel welcome, then the way you actually are dressed or are carrying yourself can make a really big difference to how they're feeling. I think that's we'll have students, for example, who are like, but this is my style. And I mean, I think that's totally understandable. And that's also something that should be celebrated. But sometimes if you're in a role of service and of making the other person feel a certain way, then that also means changing yourself.
That's right. That's
Mm-hmm.
right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's right. Indeed. Maybe you can talk a little bit to us, Stephanie, about HotelloTop. What is your aim there? What do you do specifically in your role?
So HotelloTop is a networking platform for graduates of the Dutch hotel management schools. It's been around for almost 20 years. Next year will be our 20th anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. What we do is we offer a platform for these like-minded Hotellos, right? Because, I mean, Danielle, you went to Maastricht, I went to Leeuwarden, and while you're studying, that's still a very important thing, right? Which hotel management school did you go through? But in the end, you know, when you're graduated, there's more that binds you, regardless of which hotel management school you attended. So that's really what we're focusing on. That network, because we do believe that every company should have a Hotello on their payroll, because we think that Hotellos will make companies better and make businesses better with that attitude that we started our conversation with. So what we do is we run lots of live events for them to connect and to interact. And we do initiatives with schools where we get students already involved in the network. We do awards. There's lots of initiatives. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's great fun. It's a nice way to be involved in the network and also to give back a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
And you're also very involved in that, aren't you, Beverley, with your students?
HotelloTop, not so, because
no,
I think
the EMCup. I'm sorry.
The
That's
EMCup
right.
is what I do
I'm
on
sorry.
a yearly basis, and still look forward to. It's a great place to meet up.
Mm-hmm.
But HotelloTop is specifically for the hotel schools in the Netherlands, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Stephanie, as our podcast is called The Naked Truth About, what is a truth you can bring to the table today that not much people know about you, or that they sometimes get wrong about you?
What I think people perceive me sometimes as quite serious or strong, maybe unapproachable. I could be at times, but I think the truth couldn't be more different. Because I think once people know me, they realize that I'm actually quite kind, I think, and I love to laugh, and I don't take things too seriously. But it does seem sometimes that the way I appear on the outside does not always match the personality on the inside, I would say.
Wonderful. I think you're nice.
Thank you.
A question that I have for you, I've been wanting to ask you this for a long time, but really, what drives you to do all the things you do at your little 34 years old? How do you keep so excited about all the things you do on a daily basis?
You know, I love people, so that's one, and I love bringing people together and creating an environment where people can share and can interact. So I think that's probably it. That's what I love most about it, whether it's through HotelloTop or EMCup. It's where people get together that maybe haven't met yet, or you know, the same for connecting industry and education, right? In those dialogues and in those encounters, new ideas come up, or new projects start, or those things, and I like change a lot, and I like starting new things. So I guess these impulses can get me really excited. Yeah.
Inspiring indeed.
That thing the three of us have in common, we love people. We love bringing people together. We love talking to people, getting new ideas. And Stephanie, you did that to us today, so we want to thank you so much for being on our podcast. And dear listeners, we invite you to join us as we explore our own and other people's life and work stories. We will talk to a variety of people with all kinds of backgrounds, and we have lots of knowledge to share. So let us learn out loud together and explore how we can better interact with each other in our private lives and in our work life. And let's keep on nurturing our souls. So thank you all for listening. Have a good week, you all, and be kind. The world needs a hospitality mindset.
And that is the naked truth.